Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It's day 2 of TDX. I hope you managed to grab some coffee. I saw they put it, and it was a massive queue, so I couldn't have one, but maybe later. We are really happy that you're here. Today, we're going to look at how to build some agent skills with the help of OpenAPI and external services. But before we do that, a little reminder. Please base any purchasing decisions on products and services that are currently available. And big thank you for being here. We love your feedback and everything you do, all of your curiosity. This is what drives us here at Salesforce. So jump into the introduction. My name is Detelina. I'm a product management director here at Salesforce. I'm coming all the way from the UK. It was a long flight, and yes, I have jet lag. It's also my first TDX, so I'm very excited to be here. And I'm going to pass it to Samast.
Hello everyone, I'm Samast. I'm a senior engineer on the external services team. Not as far as Detelina, but I flew in from New York, and it's also my first TDX.
Woo. So, the agenda today is we're going to do a little introductions for those of you who may not be familiar what an OpenAPI is or what external services. Then we're going to look into the different options of building an integration with external services and on your own. Believe me, there is a big difference. Then we're going to dive in a little bit more into the OpenAPI and external services. We're going to see this in a demo. And we're going to finish with an interesting slide on the new Crave Now MCP and external services, so you know when to use what. And of course, we're going to have some summary of what we did today, and I'll share some resources with you. So we all know, or we've all used chatbots or some sort of an agent in a conversation. And they're usually great. I personally use ChatGPT on the side to have a little therapy session. But in the business context, we want agents to be transactional. We want them to do something for us, like book a call or do some sort of transaction, check an inventory, or process a refund. So in order to achieve that type of transaction, we need you guys, developers and architects, to help the business to build them. And I'll pass it to Samas, who's going to show you how you can achieve that on your own or with the help of external services.
Thanks, Detelina. Let's dive right into it. So from a developer perspective, we know you can go and make these integrations, make these external callouts using Apex code. Everything exists today. But what does this mean? What does it entail? It means that you actually have to go look at the API specification, really understand all the shapes, all the endpoints, and actually go process these JSON payloads, build up the shapes in Apex, all the serializers, and don't forget about the 75% testing requirement for packaging. And then on top of that, every single time there's a new API version, you got to go back to these, update your shapes, right, and update your test, retest it manually. So then the natural question is, how do you actually go and scale this for multiple APIs over time? And so that's where our feature external services comes into play. And so just taking a step back, something I want to talk about is what an OpenAPI specification is. This is your API contract. It'll define all your different endpoints, all the different operations that you have for this API, along with the input shapes, the output shapes, like the responses, and all the data payload shapes. And so this is how you actually understand, to any caller, here's exactly what the API looks like and how to call it. So external services comes into play by actually ingesting this OpenAPI specification and actually translating it into native invocable actions you can use through the Salesforce platform. These can be used in multiple consumers like flows and agents, as well as being called directly from Apex. So you never, ever have to go and write a single line of Apex to go and make this external integration work. And so I'm going to pass it back to Detelina to give us an intro into the demo before we actually dive in to our Salesforce org.
Well, now the exciting stuff, actually see this in practice. So I'm going to step into the shoes of an account executive that is about to close an opportunity. And as part of that, they need to make sure they have a deposit payment from the customer. So that deposit payment is taken through Stripe. So all good. The account exec is going to use Agentforce, but we want to know how this was achieved, how you as developers and architects can actually make this happen. And we're going to see in practice how we're going to set up the external services with the Stripe API. Beforehand, we've done a little bit of work because we don't have all the time in the world at the moment. So we also set up some name credentials so our agent doesn't have to handle any raw APIs. Then we are going to use an auto-launch flow to be our translation layer. So we take all of the thinking, kind of the hard stuff away from the agent so he can just process the natural language intent. And then we're gonna link it together with an agent action so you can see the full end-to-end process. And now moving to the live demo. I'll pass it back to Samast.
We're gonna dive straight into here. We talked a lot, but let's actually talk about what we're going to be applying and how we're going to be applying it.
So just to set the scene, again, I'm the account executive. Here's the opportunity, 75K. I'm at last stage, and I need to take a payment. So what you can see is Samas is highlighting the Stripe payment link. So my link will be saved there once it's generated by the agent, and will take me to the checkout page for the deposit payment. So let's see how this actually comes to life.
So I'm a Salesforce admin. I'm going to go over to my setup view, and I'm going to go to the external services page within setup. Over here, you'll see an add an external service button on the top right. And as I mentioned before, we're going to be using an OpenAPI specification and passing it into the external service. So first, I'll just go ahead and give some metadata saying, I'm going to call this the Stripe API external service. I'm going to provide the complete schema. And as Dedalita pointed out, we already have a name credential set up in our org, so the agent will never directly work with credentials. All this happens behind the scenes, as well as token refreshing. And so I talked a lot about OpenAPI specs. What does it actually look like? So in this OpenAPI spec, as I mentioned, you can see all your endpoints. For example, we have the customer's endpoint with a create customer operation ID. It specifies its request body as well as its responses. As you can imagine, the Stripe API, OpenAPI spec is massive. And so what we did is we actually took that API spec, trimmed it down with AI to only actually keep the two endpoints we care about, as well as their related inputs and outputs. And we ended up with this beautiful OpenAPI spec. We're passing it in directly to external services, which then processes it. And it's actually going to go ahead and show us those two operations I mentioned, creating the customer and the payment link. We're going to activate both of those. And what happens now is that behind the scenes, external services has gone ahead and actually generated Apex classes without you writing a single line of code, as well as invocable actions that can be used across the platform. So I'll click finish here just to wrap up that flow. And here's an example of an Apex class that was just auto-generated by external services. This is the input shape that will be passed into any callout for creating the payment link. So I did not write a single line of code here. Now that we have that, I'll show you the flow that we have defined. As Dedalita mentioned, this is our translation layer. The reason why we want the flow here is because we're going to interact directly with these Apex objects. The Apex objects have typing in them. They have the required attributes in them. We don't actually want to mess any of that up at runtime, so a lot of it can be dealt with during setup time. And so we have this flow here. On the left, you can see I already have my two inputs defined, which are going to get passed in directly into my callouts. And in the middle, you'll see the steps I've already defined in the flow. Starting off, we're going to grab the opportunity. We showed you the opportunity page later, so we're grabbing that context. We're actually assigning it to the input that's going to go to creating the customer. And then we make that call out using the generated invocable action. We grab the output of that. Once again, assign it to the next input body, and we pass that in to generate the Stripe payment link. The end of that generate link action, we're going to receive the endpoint. And we grab that endpoint, and we set it back onto that original opportunity, which we grabbed in step number 1, and our flow is complete. And so this flow is going to be leveraged by the agent to be very deterministic and avoid hallucinations when we run this multiple times. And so now I'll pass it back to Dedalina, who'll talk more about the agent flow.
Thank you so much. These are very powerful stuff, guys. But the exciting part is how we connect everything together so we get that end experience. So currently, we have a generate a payment link action that we took from the flow. We already have our payment agent set up. And what we have done here is, again, just we have given the description in natural language to the agent and let them know that this action is basically helping the account executive generate a payment link for a customer. Most importantly, if I look at the record ID part here, is we have the right context. We are on the opportunity record, so that ID is taken and the agent is processing against it. What else you'll notice is for the payment link body and the Stripe custom body, we're actually ignoring that. We don't want the agent to handle this complexity. We left that for the flow, so there is no confusion, because imagine if the agent had to deal with all of this payload. So with that, we've set up our agent action, and it's time to actually go and check our opportunity again. So I'm here, again, in the shoes of my sales executive. It's time to go to work with my agent. So I'm gonna ask the agent to create the payment link, excuse my misspelling. And I will see how the agent processes my intent and analyzes my request, reaches out to the skill that has been given to him or her, and is creating the payment link for me. Of course, we are live, so we can see the payment link was successfully generated. All I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna quickly refresh my page, because I'm looking for that link in the Stripe payment field. And you can see we are live. I'm gonna click on the link. This will take me to the checkout. So my customer now can place their deposit, so we can go ahead with a deal. And you can see just in a few minutes, we were able to create full end-to-end integration without writing a single line of code. And I'm not a developer myself, so I did that as well. So a very easy and great experience. So we're gonna jump back to our presentation. Sorry, it's not my laptop. We mentioned earlier that we're gonna touch on the case of MCP and external services, or when you should choose MCP over external services. So I'll pass it to Samas to give you a quick explanation on that part.
So we talked a lot, we showed a lot, and I think naturally a lot of you are thinking, Samas, over like the last 2 days at TDX, I've been to 10 different sessions of MCP. Why do I care about external services? And there's a few things to consider here. I would think of external services as a superset. So not every API today does have MCP support. And if they do have MCP tools that they do expose, those can only be leveraged from the agent or LLM context. And so if that fits your perfect use case, you're saying, I'm only making calls from agents, and my API that I care about has MCP support, go for it. But a majority of cases will not fall in that bucket today, and that's why you use external services to actually go and make it invocable through agents. Not only agents, and external services lets you invoke and discover through flows and through Apex directly as well. And so it covers a lot more cases than MCP alone would cover.
Thank you, Samas. A quick note on MCP, obviously, we do think MCP is the future, and it's very powerful and very amazing. So stay tuned, because obviously as MCP evolves, things may change. There might be more support, but external services is also here to stay. And actually, an interesting fact for you guys, behind the scene, MCP does leverage or utilize a little bit of external services too. So as I said, we're here to stay. But let's recap what we did today. So we built an integration in a matter of minutes, thanks to external services. We set up name credential, external services, and we saved a lot of time, because you didn't have to write a single line of code, which automatically means from days and hours, you're down to minutes. So please go ahead and try external services if you haven't. We also generated an OpenAPI spec. We went on you can use any REST API and download their publicly available spec. You can use AI to really minimize it and then use whatever endpoints you want to, and then upload it into external services and start building your first integration with invocable actions available in Flow and also in agents. And as I mentioned, we never handle raw credentials thanks to raw credentials thanks to name credentials. But let's recap and finish. If anyone is interested in trying this out, external services is free. It's out there. Just grab a sandbox and play with it. Again, choose any API that might interest you and give it a go. So take a picture. This is our QR code with resources. It will take you to the external services community group on Trailhead. And I've already made a post, So it has a little demo. It actually has a full PDF with the steps we taken to build this integration. So you can do the same thing at your sandbox if you want to give it a go. I'm going to wait because I see people taking pictures. And a big thank you again. I know it's almost end of day. We're really happy to see you here with us. Hopefully you have an enjoyable rest of the day. Safe travels, everyone. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.